Thanks for staying with us here on The Pulse. This afternoon, the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice, CHRAJ, has barred the former Commissioner General of the Ghana Revenue Authority, Dr. Ammishaddai Owusu-Amoah, from holding any public office for 5 years and recommended his prosecution for corruption, fraud and procurement breaches that caused a financial loss of close to 9 million Ghana cedis to the state. The ruling follows a 2022 petition by the Movement for Truth and Accountability, which accused Dr. Owusu-Amoah of irregular procurement practices in vehicle and logistic contracts awarded to Renault Motors Limited, CHRAJ Motors and Trading Company Limited, and Telenor Ghana Limited. CHRAJ found that the GRA, under his leadership, misled the Public Procurement Authority into providing single-source contracts worth millions of cedis in breach of the Public Procurement Act. Now, it also discovers that two of the companies, CHRAJ Motors and Telenor Ghana, had no verifiable offices and were not tax compliant and fraudulently subcontracted to Renault Motors for the same vehicles. Now, the Commission concluded that the contracts were tainted with fraud and corruption. And that's a report that we have gotten here on the JoyNews channel. 157 pages, really. And my colleague, key member of our research desk here at JoyNews, Isaac Kofi, joins me in the studio just as we break down the specifics. It's quite a number of pages, Kofi. I know you've been combing through all of them, but what exactly are their findings?
Firstly, if we look at this particular case, it has traveled for 3 years, 2 months and 21 days. And in fact, if you look at the findings of CHRAJ, at a point, the petitioners went to CHRAJ and said that they wanted to withdraw the case. They didn't want to continue anymore. CHRAJ said they had every reason to go ahead because at that point they were advanced in the investigation. They had spoken to the petitioners and they had gathered, information that they felt that going ahead with the investigation could actually yield a certain outcome. And today the report is, painting that picture that there was some, financial loss to the state as far as this, investigation is concerned. So I'm going to go through the key findings as captured in the report. And just like you said, this was a contract that was awarded on the 1st of October 2021. And according to, according to CHRAJ's report, the GRA employed, and I quote, the single source procurement method in the award of the said contract, contrary to the claims of the allegation that the authority deployed the restrictive tender method. So here, CHRAJ is saying that there was a sole source instead of what the authority said they did, the restricted tender, method. And that was one of the key findings of CHRAJ. And so the method involved, there was some contradiction in terms of what the authorities had told CHRAJ and what CHRAJ's own, investigation had pointed out to. And in fact, quote, the respondent here, CHRAJ means the former boss of the GRA, Reverend Ammishaddai Owusu, misled the PPA in approving the request of the GRA to award the contract to the said companies using single source procurement method in dubious circumstances. And according to, CHRAJ, the award of the contract was in breach of some provisions of the Public Procurement Act 2003, Act 663, as amended. And CHRAJ says that, that the companies involved were unable to duly fulfill their contractual, obligations simply because they did not possess the requisite capacity to carry out the contract of such magnitude, and not because of the disruptions in the supply chain owing to the COVID-19. So just like you said, CHRAJ is saying that the companies that were contracted by, GRA did not have what it takes to actually go ahead with the contract, and they had to bring in a third party to actually go ahead with this contract. And point 6 of the summary says that the two of the companies Telenor Limited and Sajal Motors in fraudulent circumstances entered into separate contracts with Renault Motors for the supply of the same vehicles to GRA. And the report also says that the prices of vehicles procured from Renault Motors Limited were inflated, firstly, having regards to the specification of the vehicles and the fact of their bulk purchases compared to the competitive prices of the vehicles at other firms, notably Toyota Ghana Limited. So they had to do some form of comparative analysis. And what they realized was that the vehicles that were procured by this Renault Motors were relatively higher than what was available in the market per their investigation and comparative analysis they had to do with companies like Toyota Ghana Limited. And according to the GRA, they say that both Sajal Motors and Trading Company Limited, the Telenor Ghana Limited, had no physical location and could not be traced, just like you said, addresses provided by them in all their correspondence at the time of the contract. So simply, according to CHRAJ, the addresses provided by these two companies, in fact, when they traced to actually get to that physical location, they went there and they could not find these two companies.
Non-existent.
Exactly. And in fact, this is where it gets, a bit, should I say, interesting in terms of the findings, according to CHRAJ. It says that the contract for the award and the supply of vehicles and logistics to GRA was tainted with fraud and corruption, that the respondents here, Reverend Ammishaddai, being the entity head, cannot escape liability as he supervised its execution. So what we are seeing in this report is that CHRAJ was not able to establish, what we call, direct personal benefit. But CHRAJ is saying, so long as Reverend Ammishaddai was the boss of GRA and was the one that supervised that contract, he cannot take himself out of this equation. That is why he's actually at the forefront of this whole investigation. This is where the figures start to trickle in. It says that the action of the respondent caused financial loss to the state in a sum. Remember that this amount that we are looking at first, the actual amount is in dollars. CHRAJ had to do the conversion into cedis. That's why we saw the cedi conversion. But the dollar amount is about 826,551, 826,551, dollars. That is what CHRAJ is saying. And when they did their conversion, CHRAJ is saying that this its cedi equivalent is close to about 8.97 million, Ghana cedis in terms of the financial loss that they believe that GRA, looking at the supervision of Ammishaddai, has actually caused to the state. So what we are saying is that, or what the report is saying is that two of the companies, when they had to trace their addresses that they actually provided under the contract, when they went to the physical grounds, they could not find the companies. And that there were also two companies, the first companies that were contracted, they did not have the capacity to actually go ahead with this contract. So they had to rely on a third party to do the procurement on their behalf. And as a result of that, it led to the inflation of the procurement of these vehicles and other things that GRA actually contracted them to do. And they said that because of this instance, the state lost close about, 9 million Ghana cedis in terms of this whole, deal.
And then what exactly are their recommendations moving forward? Because I know that key among them, they have barred him from holding any public office for the next 5 years. What else? So
there were some decisions that were taken by CHRAJ, and we have to walk through them one by one. And CHRAJ says that based on the above, findings, they hereby decide as follows. It says that one, quote, that the respondent here, Reverend Ammishaddai, be disqualified from holding any public office for the period of 5 years from the date of this decision. This is because the statutory breaches were committed under his watch. So this is the reason that it was committed under his watch. So it's a leadership problem they're concerned about. Absolutely. And it says that as the head of the entity of the GRA, the respondent was responsible and accountable under the Section 17 of the Act 633 as amended for actions taken and for instructions as regards the implementation of this act. And so because he was the boss, he was the one at the helm of affairs, he is actually being brought into this equation and being made to lead this whole issue, and says that he has to be back for a period of 5 years, starting from the date that this report was actually issued. 2 says that considering that the acts of corruption, fraud, and causing financial loss to the state are offenses under the Criminal Offences Act 1960, Act 29, the Commission is referring the respondents and the directors of the 3 companies. So here it's not just Reverend Ammishaddai who is being referred to for prosecution, but also respondents of the 3 directors of the companies to the Attorney General for possible prosecution. And the key word here is possible prosecution. And recovery. Very important. The CHRAJ says that recovery of the sum of 26,551 Ghana cedis for the states or to the states. And it says that the Commission also requests the Board of the Public Procurement Authority, PPA, as the governing body of the PPA, acting under Section 3 of the Act 633 as amended, to debar and impugn companies, that is Sajel Motors and Telino Ghana Limited, from doing any business with the states and its international agencies for the misrepresentation that companies made to the GRA to put them in good state to win those contracts. So technically, what CHRAJ is saying that these 3 companies that have been captured under this investigation, they have actually banned them from doing any form of business with the state. So no state agency should do business with these 3 companies as captured, by the report. And it's fine, and it says that it is recommended that PPA board takes the proactive approach to all times and also cases by insisting on strict enforcement of procurement regulation, that's the 2022 one, which have now been passed to reinforce guidelines on single source procurement issues by the PPA. So because this whole deal went through a single source, approach, CHRAJ is telling PPA to strengthen the act, and then also the safeguards that have been provided under the new amendment and a new act, to make sure that something of this nature doesn't happen again. But the most important thing is that CHRAJ is saying, well, Ammishaddai must not hold any public office for the next 5 years. 2, the 3 companies involved, PPA should not do any government business with them, starting the release of this, the release date of this report.
Thank you so much, Kofi. And then we're just looking at the key findings of this report. You can find it on myjoyonline.com, 157 pages long, just detailing the work of CHRAJ and some of the key findings they have made. And this afternoon, investigations are underway to ascertain the cause of the collapse of a 3-story building at Klagon in the Tema West municipality following the injury of a mother and her 2 children. Rescue teams are currently sifting through the rubble to establish if anyone else is trapped under it. My colleague Fatal Bayaga has spent the whole morning monitoring rescue efforts, and he joins us live from the grounds with updates on this. Fatal, just walk us through some of the key things that has happened so far and where we are as we speak.
Support Chief Executive for the Tema West Municipal Assembly right here with me. Honorable, thank you very much. You're live on JoyNews. Talk to me about this situation. When you got here, what have you picked so far?
So we got here in the early hours of the day as I got a distress call from the assembly member for the electoral area. When we came, we initially assessed what the situation was. We asked around if there could be anyone trapped under. We spoke with the immediate neighbor who has been affected heavily. As you well know, his wife and then their child got injured. but they are responding to treatment. Actually, the wife just came, but the son is also relaxing in there. There's a little bit of trauma involved, you know. They were asleep when it happened, somewhere around 4 a.m. So the little one is a little traumatized, but with time, hopefully, it will get well.
But based on your preliminary checks, what might have led to this particular collapse?
So I would immediately put it at supervision. So the developer actually made an application to the assembly, but didn't follow through to get the requisite permit. He has been cautioned by our task force to stop work and come to the assembly and has refused. So I would say the initial investigations from the engineer shows that some of the quality of work that has to go into this, looking at the brakes, it didn't go in there.
But did you do a follow-up when you asked him to come to the assembly?
So he was cautioned for 2 weeks. We are still in the 2 weeks duration. It has not elapsed yet before this happened. Actually, a couple of days ago, someone made a complaint about this particular building. So there was a follow-up that was made. But because his time frame had not elapsed, we were waiting on him because he had actually traveled. He's in Kumasi as we speak. To put into right perspective, he is actually managing it for the owner. So he is in Kumasi, but the owner is not within the jurisdiction. She's traveled outside of the country. Yes.
Thank you very much, Honorable.
You heard that my colleague Fatal Bayaga just engaging key officials on the grounds. And let me bring in now the Municipal Chief Executive for Tema West, Ludwig T. Totime. We appreciate your time here on The Pulse. I also have with me Maxwell Emmanuel Nibe. He's Director of Man-Made Disaster at NADMO Headquarters. We appreciate your time, gentlemen. Let me start with the MC for Tema West. Now, based on your findings, this developer didn't have a permit to erect this building. And you looked on as he continued his work. How do you defend that, really?
Well, thank you very much. Saying we looked on might be a little harsh. Like I stated earlier on in your interview, in the earlier interview, we had cautioned him. He was supposed to have appeared before us, even before the other complaint was followed. He has been asked to stop work. We got a couple of days ago, we got a call that they have brought in some materials. That's when we followed up with a call that he was supposed to have reported, and we heard he has brought some more materials to the site. So that's where we were till we got this unfortunate news.
And what are you doing moving forward, really, to ensure incidents like this do not reoccur?
Well, so we will effective immediately. We will increase our monitoring. The enforcement will be much harsher than just initial caution. Once you begin any development without permit, you should be sure that the full arm of the municipal will come at you. So it's just a caution out there to any developer within the Tema West municipality. Get the requisite permit before you start any form of development so that we can avoid mishaps like these.
And as leadership, really, as authority, I'm sure you're concerned about this. Have you invited the developer? Will you be cracking the whip?
The developer is on his way to Accra as we speak. As I indicated in the earlier interview, he is more of a caretaker for the main developer who is not within the country as we speak. So he's on his way, that's Mr. Fosu, is on his way from Kumasi to Accra.
And so will you be taking this up with the police so that we can see that the developer is actually sanctioned for some of these activities, especially because you just tell us that he didn't have permit to erect this structure?
Yes, so in the initial hours, the police were fully represented, the fire, all the needed security personnel were here. So a formal complaint has been laid to them, but we will follow through with all the sanctions that has to be meted out to the developer. And that I can assure the residents and everyone within the Tema West municipality. We will not sleep on this. We are going to take very, very strict measures against the developer and against anyone who is developing without permits.
And what are the likely sanctions we're to see in coming days?
It could move from penalty units by way of making payments for the distraction that has been that's happened, and it could go all the way to imprisonment.
And we hear that a woman and her 2 children were injured. What's the story behind that, really? And how are they faring as we speak?
Well, so they are actually, they've been discharged as we speak. In the morning, they were taken to the clinic just at Clagon. Then later, they were transferred to AIMA, that's the Maritime Hospital. They have been treated and discharged as we speak now. The lady left here not too long ago, so they've gone to the home of the husband's mom. So they are there as we speak now.
And who is bearing the cost of their medical treatment?
So the municipal will bear the initial cost, but eventually the whole cost will be transferred to the developer.
Thank you so much, Ludwig Tay. He is the MC for Tema West. Let me bring in Maxwell Emmanuel Nibe. He's Director of Man-Made Disaster at NADMO headquarters. We appreciate your time here on the Pulse. Based on your initial findings, what exactly led to the collapse of this structure?
Yeah, good afternoon, and good afternoon to my colleague MC, who was there with this whole day. I'm back to the office to discuss and to give our report to our Director General. But the initial report that we got a distress call from our in Tema West about the information of the collapse. We got there, the MC was already there. We had some discussions. They brought in excavators to collect the debris. But the initial finding is that you see that the integrity of the building was not done. Just like what the MC have said, we discussed it, and it was clear that no permit was acquired for such a structure to be built. And then we inspected around, and then we saw that in collapsing, the building collapsing, the debris went into an adjoining house that was just behind, where a woman was lying there with sleeping with 2 other children who were injured. And like he said, they were taken to the hospital. We went with the MC and the MP to the hospital. Fortunately for us, she was fine and discharged, but we insisted that she does some tests, and the MC have taken charge of paying, but to charge the developer for any cost that will be done. And then we discussed that there is the need for some processes, if they need be for a court process to be taken on to at least to serve as a deterrent to other developers there.
And in recent times, you've been dealing with a lot of collapsed structures. Is there a reason why, based on your findings, this is happening? And how is NADMO dealing with this moving forward?
I think most of the developers would do it in the night. We've just also spotted an adjoining building that was just adjacent to the building that also have an integrity issue, which is hosting students in the building. We've instructed the municipal chief executive to immediately cordon off the area and stop anybody from being accommodated in the facility, and let the integrity test be done on the building, such that we are sure that this building will not collapse one day on the 12th. So if we go there now, they are vacating the building, and we are going to invite the owner of the building for him to be surcharged for any other work that will be done, the inspection of the building, all those things. Because if we don't do it, like you said, there's a lot of issues that are happening. They don't get the appropriate permissions. They buy a 2-story building or a 1-story building. Then they decide to add on. And when they are adding on, they do it in the night when everybody is sleeping, they are constructing. And you can just imagine with that collapsed building, all is just when you get to the scene, there's no concrete work there. Everything is sand. And that tells you the kind of shadow work that is done on the site.
And this is quite worrying moving forward. I'm quite interested in how you plan to work with, especially the municipality, for different constituencies to ensure that some of these issues do not reoccur.
Yeah, we're taking it up. We'll be working in collaboration with everybody, including you, the media, that you come on board. Because sometimes when you deal with this and they don't put light on it, people still do it. But for example, if this structure was put in the light and then it was broadcasted in the news, I don't think the developer would hide and go and do anyway. So we think that this time around we should bring in the media, go and expose these buildings to the public, and then instructions will be given. And when the public know that this building have integrity issue, they don't get close to it. And possibly all the authorities that need be will give us the power so that these buildings are pulled down before they become a disaster for all of us to run to.
Thank you so much, Maxwell, for your time here on Joy News. Let me just wrap up with the MCE for Tema West. We've just been hearing from NADMO tell us that there's another structure within the same vicinity that they suspect may have structural integrity issues. As the municipal chief executive, what are you doing to ensure that incidences like this don't reoccur? You may have to unmute for me to hear you, Ludwig.
Sorry, I'm still at the site and there was some interruption. So
that's
I had
fine.
to mute.
I understand
So
there's another structure next to this building in question, and we understand that NADMO has already raised concerns about the structural integrity of this structure. I'm wondering what you're doing as the MC for the area to ensure that another disaster do not reoccur.
Yes, so all the, if I could, I just want to give you a view of it so you see how.
Okay, we have all the time. Please show us.
Okay, so these are some of the students here. This is the building, another building that NADMO, Director for Man-Made Disaster, was talking about. And we've asked all the students to evacuate effective immediately.
Okay.
If you can see, some of the students are there. If you can see at the far end, some of the students we are moving out. They just finished their exams this afternoon.
Okay.
But if you can see here too, we've written on there for them to stop work and produce permit. So already they've been cautioned, but like I'm saying, we need to take it from just caution to stricter measures, because they seem to keep continuing even after the caution. So like I'm saying, these are some of the students. So they have been asked to evacuate. So they are running, but they've been asked to evacuate. So they are all moving out as we speak immediately.
I see. And this is quite worrying because this is happening in the same vicinity. What stringent measures will you be taking to ensure that some of these cases are dealt with? Because we've seen a lot of properties where they write stop work, produce permits, and then you go and you see the construction workers still working actively. What stricter enforcement will you employ moving forward?
So, like I said earlier on, we'll be harsher than just stop work and then they come in and then they pay the permit fines and whatever building they are doing, they leave us to now come and inspect for them to do the right thing. Now we'll move in straight and take whatever measures that we will have to take to avoid issues like these. We are not going to be negotiating with them on doing the right thing after they've started the wrong thing. We are going full force to make sure they start the right thing ground up.
Thank you so much. That is Ludwig Tay. He is the Municipal Chief Executive for Tema West. I also spoke earlier to Maxwell Emmanuel Nibe, who is Director of Man-Made Disaster at NADMO. Well, away